It's about that time.
Stoned on Sports.
How's it going, everyone? You're tuned in to Stoned on Sports Fantasy Football. My name is Matt. Got the co-host Kyle here with me today. It is Tuesday. That means we are talking waiver wire targets. And understand this, folks, we are in the stretch run of the regular season. And over the next couple weeks, you literally have half of the teams with their bye. That's right. Between now and week 15, 16 teams are on bye. That could make a mess for a few people out there.
Yeah, especially week 14, because I know firsthand about that. But and that's why, it's important to work the waiver wire and be shrewd and make the right decisions and hopefully get yourself a win this week. So we'll get it started. First guy we got is Drake Maye. Oh, I'm falling behind here. Let me get the banner up. Drake Maye. He kind of struggled last week against the Bears defense. They're pretty strong. Completed 15 of 25 passes, 184 yards, 1 touchdown, threw a pick as well, and did add 24 yards on the ground. He was held to just 12.8 fantasy points, placed him as QB 16 last week. And he's averaged nearly 17 since week 6, making, plays as a dual threat QB, scoring fantasy points with his legs, which helps give you all, or all of us really, a nice fantasy floor for him. Since becoming the starter, he's averaging 44.2 rushing yards per game, which if you stretch that out over a full 17-game season, 751 yards. That's pretty good. How's he doing it? Very, very damn efficiently. That's how this season Maye ranks among QBs. He is second in scramble rate, first in avoided tackles per rush, first in first downs per rush, and first in yards per carry. It's pretty nice. And you can see even more what an elite runner Maye is by drilling down a little bit deeper, taking a look at rushing fantasy points scored per quarter by quarterbacks this season. He's in the top 5. Jalen Hurts at 2.51. Justin Fields is not even playing anymore at 2.21. Jaden Daniels having a nice season at 2.18. And Drake Maye is 4th with 1.92 fantasy points scored per quarter using his legs. Lamar rounds out the top 5, so he's better than Lamar. Of course, Lamar doesn't have to run as much this year with some of the receivers he's got, but that's pretty damn good company there. The rookie QB is looking real good. Over the next 3 weeks, Maye will play the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Colts. On the year, the Rams and the Colts, allow plenty points to quarterbacks. And while the Dolphins on the year are third fewest to quarterbacks, since week 8, when Tua returned and the Miami defense started seeing more, normal situations again, they've allowed the 8th most points to quarterbacks. So even if the Miami defense, does put the Patriots in a position where they're chasing, it's a good environment for fantasy scoring, for garbage time for him. He's a risky play this week, but not a bad streamer if you're unable to snag someone like Justin Herbert or even Bo Nix.
Yeah, and I think really his ability to run is one of those things that really wasn't brought up a whole lot during the NFL draft. And,
Sure.
and as teams were picking this year for fantasy, obviously, a guy who's not starting isn't going to be your pick for quarterback, but I'm sure there's quite a few folks out there that maybe took a flyer on him. And we see too, and I know the Bears and the Patriots just played, you have Caleb Williams, who objectively went into a better situation in terms of, offensive weapons that he was surrounded with and all the talent they have there on offense. And there ain't no way in hell you can tell me he's playing better than Drake Maye.
No. And, maybe better situation player-wise, but I certainly don't think so. Coaching-wise, Shane Waldron was fired this morning, the OC there. They're replacing him there in Chicago, so we'll see what happens. But I agree.
Nowhere to go but up.
Exactly. Let's see. Next up, another quarterback. Russell Wilson is heading into a stretch of 4 straight division games against friendly pass defenses, beginning with a home matchup this week versus Baltimore. Matt, can Russ cook this Sunday?
I think so. And he now has multiple touchdown passes in 2 of his 3 starts, including 3 against Washington this week. We haven't seen the big yardage, but he has been consistent. And understand kind of coinciding with him taking over has been the emergence of the running game there. Najee has looked fantastic. He's looked as good recently as he has at any point in his career. I still think there's a little bit of rust and maybe some chemistry building going on because he's completing just 58.8% of his passes. To put that in context, his career norm is about 65%. So he's about 6 points shy. You mentioned the upcoming schedule. He gets the Ravens twice, the Browns twice, the Bengals and the Eagles across his next 6. That Eagles defense is really the only one that I would consider to be, we'll call it challenging from a fantasy standpoint. He's been the QB 11 in points per game since taking on the starting role. And there's some big plays happening as well. He's not just dinking and dunking. He's top 10 in pass plays over 20 yards and over 30 yards since taking the job. This isn't going to be a high volume pass offense though, right? This isn't the Ben Roethlisberger days. He has just 85 attempts from week 7 onward, and there is a bye in there as well. But despite those limited attempts, his 13.5 EPA ranks 5th among all players who have thrown a pass this season. And his 0.14 EPA for dropback is 19th. That's better than Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, and Patrick Mahomes. They did add Mike Williams at the deadline, and he's already made an impact despite his limited snap count. And I think his role is going to continue to grow and only help benefit not only Russ, but the offense as a whole. And we are talking about a dude that has 19 plus points in 2 of 3 starts. I know for me, I've got a waiver claim in on him in a league where, you know, I'm not somebody who takes quarterback high to begin with. I lost Dak, and then I played a little bit of musical chairs before he went out. I'm going for him, quite frankly, with that schedule coming up. Absolutely. That is definitely in his favor.
Yeah, I think he's the clear top option available in most leagues there at quarterback. And it's not really difficult to expect a possible 20-point game for him this week, especially if, you know, the Lamar and the Ravens are clicking against Pittsburgh. They're going to have to throw a lot more there. So
I think they are too. One little caveat, though, to the Ravens. They're just 1-3 when Derrick Henry rushes for less than 90 yards, and that Steelers defense can stop the run.
Sure can. We got Blue Yays in the chat just popping in here with a question, looking for some trade deadline help. Would you sell Hill and Hunt and Pacheco for DK and JT or Cook?
Of those 2 running backs, I'd rather have JT. DK was on a fantastic pace prior to getting hurt. Hunt and Pacheco are essentially one player for me. They did, and it's cool you bring this up. It looks like the practice window is going to be open for Pacheco. Does that mean he is playing this week? Absolutely not. Even if he was, I'm not putting him in my lineup. What that means is the team has 21 days to get his ass back out on the field. I think I would do it, honestly. At this point, DK and Hill will be generous and call it a wash. JT, one of the best backs in the league, even when healthy. I don't think you can say that about Pacheco. You really can't say it about Hunt. Right now, he's incredibly inefficient, but is the beneficiary of volume. Pacheco will be a little more efficient. We'll see what happens, though, in terms of his volume. I can't see them just giving him 20 carries his first game back. They may ease him in a little bit, but we're in the stretch run. Teams are fighting for playoff spots. I'm going to go ahead and make this trade.
I agree. Sounds good.
So we had the reemergence of the Gus bus this week. He's been out. He's been on IR. Kamani Vidal kind of filled in. But now that Gus is back, it's looking like he's going to eat into Dobbins' workload. Is he somebody you're targeting?
Yeah, for some depth, I would imagine. I mean, the Gus bus is out of the garage and, you know, back on the road, which is nice. Matt mentioned he lost his, well, he didn't really mention, but lost his starting job there to JK as well. He still remained a pretty big part of the offense before he got injured, averaging about 10 touches the first 4 games of the season. His problem was he only made it about 3 a carry when he had the ball. So this past week was by far his best game as a Charger, 10 rushes, for 55 yards. Those that don't math too good, that's 5.5 a carry. And 4 of those carries, which I really like, came in the red zone. Unfortunately, no touchdowns, even though Hassan Haskins vultured one from him, or Hassan Haskins, I should say, vultured one from him the other day.
Michigan guy.
Yes, he is. Imagine why he's there. In week 10, Edwards had a positive rush EPA of 1.6. It was in the top 12, and his 60% rushing success rate was 3rd last week. Listen, Dobbins is going to get his share of the workload. How he averaged 3.3 a carry this last week. So maybe you'll see Gus with more carries in the upcoming weeks. We know Jim Harbaugh loves to pound the rock. I think he's one of the top waiver wire options at running back this week, but it's worth noting the next 4 matchups are no bueno. Cincinnati, Baltimore, at Atlanta, and at Kansas City. All 4 of those teams are in the 10th fewest points or better to running backs. And, with those teams, the Chargers might not have a lot of good positive game scripts where they can run the ball as much as they want to. And the fantasy playoff schedule looks better for him with Tampa Bay. There is Denver, but championship weekend against the Patriots is huge. You could have a great season finale. Somebody to grab if you have some room on your bench there. Get some depth at running back. You can never have too much this time of year.
Yeah, I will say, and with that mention of championship week, if you're somebody who is starting Gus Edwards consistently and you make the championship, you're a better man than me, and you should be sitting in this chair. But I do think, we talked about in the open how there's just going to be a shit ton of buys coming up. I think he can be a decent bye week fill-in. I'd like him better as a flex than as like my RB2.
Sure.
But I do think, he should get the goal line work. Maybe he, pushes for, 9-10 carries a week. That's a team that's going to run the ball and they run it well. And I think he can be a primary benefactor of that, but he's not somebody who has any kind of ceiling to speak of either.
Sure. Yep. I think because get some touchdowns coming. They could be coming. I mean, it's not going to be like last year, of course, but all right. Next running back. We got a few of them for you today. Volume is king, and Audric Estime with the Broncos was the lead back for Denver in week 10 and is a top priority add this week with, I believe, weekly RB2 upside. Matt, what do you think?
Well, you said it. He finally got some volume, and we've heard the coaching staff talk about that, not only in the preseason, but here over the last few weeks as well. He went 14 for 53 against the best run defense in the league. So that should tell you something. He led the team with a 46% snap share. He led in attempts with 14. Nobody else had more than 2. And he led in rushing yards. He also garnered 2 of the 3 red zone carries and 82% of the carry share. And 64% of the designed runs. That's the second highest total by a Broncos running back this season. And look, this 5th-round rookie out of Notre Dame is no stranger to heavy workloads. He had 210 carries in 12 games last season, his last year in college. And he's got some decent-ish matchups coming up with games against the Falcons, Raiders, Browns, and Colts. Most of those are in the bottom half in terms of points allowed to the running back position. And we've seen for years now how Peyton uses his running backs when he has one that he likes. And we have been hearing, again, for a few weeks how he wanted to get Estime more involved. Really, this could be your last chance this season to snag a team's RB1 off the wire. However, his upside is going to be capped just because he's not really a factor in the pass game. But still, the Broncos are a team that surprised some people this year with how well they played up until this point. And they do have some winnable games coming up. So, if the Broncos are sitting on a lead, he's somebody who could conceivably get close to 20 carries in a game. If you've got a running back getting 20 carries, I don't care who he is or who he plays for, that's a valuable fantasy asset.
It is. And I love that he was on the field in the closing minutes, handling some of the most important touches for Denver in that game versus Kansas City. It was nice to see because McLaughlin actually started the game. But you can see who, those guys are not Sean Payton guys. Estime is in Payton's regime, I should say. He inherited both those guys. So I think he's going to get a lot more play.
I think so too. We've got another running back for you. And this one is more of a grab and stash just because the guy ahead of him has a long line of injuries in his history. Kyle, tell us why we should be looking at Cam Akers.
Well, for the first 3 quarters of the game there, the Vikings game, the only 2 running backs that made the field for the Vikings were Aaron Jones and Cam Akers. He played 26 of 84 snaps, and he got that extra playing time later in the game when Aaron Jones missed that time with an injury. It was not Ty Chandler at the number 2 running back position. I mean, he'd been the clear backup for the first, 8 weeks of the season, but no more. Even in week 9, we saw Akers seem to overtake him on the depth chart. He played 16 snaps to Ty Chandler's 0. So I like it. During the 15 minutes that Aaron Jones was out, Cam Akers, 30% of snaps, Chandler 15. Cam Akers had 13 carries for 38 yards. Not very good for efficiency there. He did run 8 routes, caught his 1 target for 9 yards. And yeah, Chandler, just 15% snap rate, 4 carries, 18 yards, ran 6 routes, didn't even get targeted. So if we assume that the Vikings would use their running backs, over a full game as they did 15 minutes when Aaron Jones was out, it seems like Akers would be the most valuable in fantasy, and especially if Aaron Jones were to go down for any amount of time. It doesn't sound like Aaron Jones is going to miss time with that injury, but do remember, as Matt alluded to, he's an older back with a huge history of struggling with injuries. He could be limited. Minnesota could also decide to play it safe and lower his usage this week as well. So I think Akers could be used for more work as a result of that. But at the very least, they'll use him as a change of pace back when Jones is healthy. And, I think he's borderline rosterable in standard formats, but he's most certainly a mustache.
Yeah, for sure. And we're at the point in the year where if you've got your 2 or 3 running backs, you need to have their handcuffs, period. Earlier in the season, it's a little bit easier to kind of forego that just because you have players emerge, guys get hurt, et cetera, et cetera. It's crunch time. You got to cover all your bases. And what the hell is going on with the Vikings? Like, ever since Detroit went into their house, slapped them around, raided their fridge, and sat down to eat, they've kind of been reeling. 12 points they score against Jacksonville. The fuck out of here.
No touchdown. That's crazy with somebody like Justin Jefferson on your team. A lot of talent there. Just didn't work out their way. So,
well, Debo says that's word on the street here in Minnie. He could play more. KOC likes him. I do think, though, that, if something happens to Aaron Jones where he has to miss a game and it's Akers and Chandler, I do think Chandler would get the majority of the pass down work. We saw him kind of get used like that last year as well. But still, like I said, pick him up, stash him. You need it.
Definitely. All right. Another running back. I don't know. Last week, I think we had like a running back or 2, and just kind of the way it goes this week. In week 10, Tyjae Spears returned from hamstring injury, and he solidly cut into Tony Pollard's role. In fact, this was Pollard's first game below a 60% snap rate. I think this is going to start looking more like a committee moving forward. Don't you think, Matt?
I think so too. Spears went 7 for 47, caught all 3 of his targets for a whopping 4 yards. But look, I like the efficiency at over 6 yards a carry, and he flashed a bit of it last year as well as a rookie. And we saw pretty much an even snap split between him and Pollard. It was 29-25, and that held true with routes and carries. He's got a tough schedule coming up, though. Like, tough. Next 3 games are the Vikings, Texans, and Commies. They're all top half against running backs. But after that, they get the Jags, who are the 3rd worst. And really, this is kind of a tough offense to invest in. They've scored more than 20 points just once all season. Right now, his standalone value is kind of iffy. He's, maybe a lower tiered flex play. The team does lean towards him, though, in passing situations, so it could be a benefit just given how often that team is trailing. Pollard left the game Sunday with an injury. If he ends up missing time at any point, I think Spears becomes an RB2. A lot of it, though, for me, is just the team context. That's not a good team. You've got Will Levis back now, who's kind of a wild card. I mean, he could play fantastic, or he could absolutely be terrible. So it's tough to say. The one thing that's held true throughout the year, though, is this team is generally trailing. If we get into a garbage time situation or something like that, you could easily see Spears with 6 grabs or something like that. And if he can get you 10 points just off his receiving game work, anything else he gets on the ground is gravy on top.
I agree. Tyler Sperry, welcome back to the show. I hit the wrong button here. Would you drop Tank Dell for Bateman? Oh, God. And it looks like Nico's coming back this week. You look at Bateman's schedule, and I don't really like it. With Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and Philadelphia, his next 3 games. Tank Dell's still had 9 targets the last couple weeks. Sure, some of those will probably drop down, with Nico coming back. I don't really love it. What do you think?
I would rather have Tank Dell than Rashad Bateman. Honestly, I think Nico coming back is going to be a net positive. Honestly, I think it's going to open up a lot more, and teams are going to be paying more attention to Nico Collins than they are Tank Dell. Rashad Bateman, I don't know. I've just never really seen it with him. I understand. He's been better this year than he has in years past, but I think at their core, the Ravens are a team that wants to run the ball. They've got Justice Hill, obviously, and they've got Derrick Henry. They've also got a returning Keaton Mitchell to add another dimension to their offense. Give me Tank Dell.
Yeah, I'd rather do that as well. I see the temptation there, but eventually Deontay Johnson is going to get more involved in that, and I just think that there'll even be less targets to go around.
Yeah, most likely, honestly.
Oh, my bad.
What the hell was that dickhead's name? Rashid Shaheed got injured early in the season, and he was on absolute fire. He brought that real deep threat dimension to the Saints offense, and the Saints, quite honestly, have been kind of shitty over the past 6 weeks. But they picked up MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, to take over that role, and he returned some dividends this week.
He did. And, they got Carr back. They lost Olave and Bub Means and Shaheed to IR, and Cedric Wilson Jr. also missed last week. So that just left these guys you don't even know, Kevin Austin Jr. and Mason Tipton and MVS, of course. And I think that really allowed MVS to play a large role. He really made the most out of his just 12% target share and 57% snap rate. And he was consistently on the field, both in 11 and 12 personnel, which I like. He caught all 3 of his targets for 109 yards. And, of course, those 2 tutties. Finishes wide receiver 2 in PPR league. Shitty. Probably would have been number 1 if Jamar Chase didn't go nuclear last Thursday. But he's got some decent stuff. In week 10, among the 68 receivers with 3 targets, he had the second best PFF receiving grade. He tied for the 4th most yards. And he was tied for 10th in yak per reception. And I think even when Cedric Wilson Jr. is back, MVS is now the favorite to be the team's top wide receiver for the rest of the season. I think he has a bit of a higher upside compared to the other guys because of his big playability, down the field there. And the Saints are just desperate for someone who can make critical catches. And I think MVS can do that. And, there's been a long history of him, not being a fantasy relevant wide receiver. I mean, he played with one of the best quarterbacks ever in Patrick Mahomes and never really did anything. But the Saints' upcoming schedule is pretty favorable for wide receivers. They got Cleveland. Week 12 is a bye, and then week 13 is the Rams. Both the Browns and the Ravens are in the top 10 most points allowed to wide receivers. And both squads have been actually worse since week 5 at points allowed to wide receivers. So I wouldn't go, overboard on bids for MVS, but I understand it if you're looking for some upside.
I can dig it. He's very boomer bust.
Yes.
Honestly. But it's a no risk it, no biscuit kind of situation. And look, there's worse options out there. Derek Carr has shown this year. He's more than willing to chuck it down the field. And if there's one thing MVS does well, it's run down the field. Now his hands, different story. He might be open. The ball might be delivered on time and on target, but that doesn't mean his ass is going to bring it in.
This is true. All right. Next up, we got Jauan Jennings. Sure looked like Brock Purdy's go-to guy in week 10, leading the 49ers in catches, targets, and yards. It appears, Matt, that Jennings is the X-receiver rest of season. Would you agree?
Absolutely. He hauled in 7 of his 11 targets for 93 yards in his first game back after being out a couple weeks. Not only did he lead the team in what you mentioned, he led the team in routes run, targets, receptions, air yards, and receiving yards. Dude ran a route on 40 of 41 dropbacks, garnering a 32% target share and a 34% air yardage share. This is his 4th game over 10 PPR points in 7 games played. And we saw earlier this season what kind of upside he has in terms of his production. I think he's going to provide a decently high floor given the offense. There may be some ups and downs just due to the veritable cornucopia of options that Brock Purdy has at his disposal there. But I'm expecting him to play the most snaps among their wide receivers there. And we are talking about a 49ers team that's second in pass yards per game. Absolutely love the matchup this week against the Seahawks, who allow the 9th most points to wide receivers. He gets the Bills and Packers after that, who are both kind of top 10-ish. Right now, I understand he's somebody who is more widely rostered than who we typically profile. But, you know, I think his ownership is somewhere around 60%. So he's available in damn near half of leagues. He's somebody that needs to be rostered in every league. And he's somebody who I think at worst is going to give you back end wide receiver 2 production, but he's got wide receiver 1 upside on any given week.
Sure, yeah. If you got Marvin Harrison Jr. on bye this week or Malik Neighbors on bye this week, he could surprise you and be a great fill-in.
Couldn't agree more. So we've seen the emergence of Jayden Daniels this year, but he's not the only one who's starting to emerge there in Washington. We know Scary Terry is a primary option there, but Noah Brown has really stepped forward and established himself as the second option in that passing game. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's seeing some volume there. He had 7 targets, caught 3 of them for 33 yards this past week, but he has at least 6 targets in 4 of his last 5 games and has been targeted 27 times over the past 5 weeks, which is tied for the 23rd most among wide receivers. His 19.7 target share ranks 24th among those with at least 100 routes ran. The only players ahead of him on the list who aren't widely rostered are receivers who play only in 11 personnel in like a slot role. Noah Brown's an every down starter. I think that's something that I think it's critical for fantasy. You want your guys out on the damn field. So far this season, 70 receivers have seen 35 plus targets, including Brown. You know, he's middling there. He's smack dab in the middle there in PFF grade, yards per route run, and he's 24th in yards per reception at 14 flat. I think he's, unlikely to see any bigger of a role there in Washington, but he's perfectly fine option in deep leagues for an injury or a bye week replacement. The upcoming schedule for him isn't super great. Next 2 weeks are versus division opponents, Philly and Dallas. Dallas will be good. But Eagles are damn good versus wide receivers. And then week 13 is the Titans. Pretty tough again, but they've also slipped the past 2 weeks, giving up a lot of points there. With that Washington offense firing on all cylinders, and he seems to have a great rapport, him and Jayden Daniels do, I think he's a great pickup for some depth.
I agree. Bisco is back. He's got a question. For his flex, Tillman, McConkey, or Pollard this week. He also has Nico and CD for wide receivers, Hunt and Kamara for running backs. Without any deep research, Tillman stands out to me. He's been a wide receiver 1 every week since Jameis took over. And really, he's been an effective weapon ever since Amari got traded. He took over that X receiver role there in the offense, and he's been giving you results. I'm going to roll with him, honestly.
Yeah. Pollard's kind of rough against Minnesota's run defense don't like that. McConkey's got Cincinnati. There could be a ton of points scored in that. Got plenty of scoring in Cincinnati Chargers. So yeah, it'd be Tillman, McConkey, right in the order you got them written, really. Tillman, McConkey, then Pollard for me.
Yeah,
and then you get Nico back this week. Be huge.
Oh yeah, I think Jameis is going to abuse that Saints secondary this week, and it's a little bit of a revenge game for him too.
Sure is.
I love a good narrative.
He has Amari too, but he's a fantasy edger. Yeah. I have him in a couple leagues, and I'm just like, is this the week I can play him? Can I play him this week? Will he start? Will he play? Is he not hurt? God. Sounds like there's a chance this week.
I hope so. I need him in a league.
Well, we can't not talk about fantasy and not at least include one tight end, and this one's probably not on any of your guys' radars. Chargers tight end Will Dissly has the 6th best target share, 22.5% among tight ends since week 5, and has the best schedule for the position over the next 5 weeks. Matt, should Dissly be a fantasy starter during that stretch?
Possibly. It depends on what your options are. I think if you're just in search of a bye week fill-in, he's a fantastic option. And look, you know I love me a nice tight end. He has taken over as the Chargers receiving option at the position. He's got 27 targets the last 4 weeks. This past week, he hauled in 5 of 6 targets for 30 yards. His 5 receptions led the team. Over his last 5 games, he's averaged 5 for 37, but he has yet to find the end zone this season. And speaking of 5, best schedule for tight ends over the next 5 weeks. He gets the Bengals, Ravens, at the Falcons, at the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers. He has had at least a 50% snap share all but 2 weeks this season. And he's been among the league leaders at the position in target share and first read target share as of late. Do want to point out, though, since peaking this year with 39 attempts against the Cardinals in week 6, Justin Herbert's pass attempts have decreased each week. He had a season low tying 18 this past week, but looking a little bit further into the context, I mean, those are the games that the Chargers have been ahead and have controlled late in the game, so there's really no need to pass. The upcoming schedule makes me think that may not necessarily be the case. Coming up, there's some halfway decent teams on their schedule. The Bengals and the Ravens, the Falcons, the Chiefs, the Bucks, all those teams can put up points. I think, yeah, if you need someone as a bye week fill-in, I think he's an outstanding candidate. There's no real, aside from McConkey, standout receiving option on that team. Herbert's been spreading the ball around quite a bit. And so to count on consistent week over week target volume might be a little bit difficult. It might be asking a little bit too much out of him. And just the no touchdowns is kind of a killer.
It is.
I get it. They're hard to predict. But at the same time, you do want to at least see him sniff the end zone. And that's not really been happening here.
No, it has not. But you're a McBride owner, an Otten owner, and he's not going to see their level of targets, but I still think he'd be a great replacement in a high scoring matchup this week. And Dubo's wondering too, he needs a tight end, Dalton Schultz, Jonnu Smith, or Dissly. Out of those 3, I know Jonnu scored did he score a touchdown or did he just get short? I can't remember.
I think it was just short. He's kind of emerged there in Miami. Dalton Schultz, I thought honestly he was going to step up more with Nico and Diggs going down, and he's kind of been a disappointment in that regard. For me, it's going to be between Jonnu Smith and Will Dissly. Oh, damn, that's a good one. I think
because they play the Miami plays the Raiders, and that's a great both. Dissly and Schultz or Jonnu Smith have great matchups this week.
They are. I'd go honestly with either one of those. You could flip a coin. I like the Miami's offensive potential a little bit better than the Chargers, so I'll go with Jonnu. But it's really splitting hairs.
It is.
And Kelsey's right. We ain't dissing Disley here.
Ain't dissing no Disley.
This is a Disley diss free zone.
That's right. All right. Wow. We breezed through that pretty fast, didn't we? Let's see. Hold on. Let me get to the right spot here. Results for the fantasy league.
My huge embarrassing failure.
Yeah, you got doubled up there by Loud Boy. That'll happen. I lost. Ramey, our old co-host, snuck out a win by a few points there. And Dubo just can't stop fucking winning. Just rattled off 9 in a row. He's already clinched a playoff spot. So congrats to you, Dubo. Standings are like that. He's top of the standings there with his little asterisk there. So Loud Boy in second. I'm in third. Drew in fourth. AJ's in fifth. Lock it down. Matt's still got a chance to sneak in there as a 6th seed.
Yep, Matt's still got a chance. Look, Dubo is a paper tiger. You know, you look at the points scored against him. It's the luckiest dude I've seen in fantasy football this year. But you know what? You take it.
He's had some lucky. What has he got for 1174 against? Ramrod has less than him, 1119. But
look what I got, 1433.
Yeah, you've been beat up. You have
a little bit
beat the hell up. But well, hell, we're gonna get out of here unless you don't got anything else, bud.
No, it's gonna be an early night, I guess.
I love it. So yeah, we'll be back Thursday. We'll be previewing what's he got here? Talk that shit. My defense points allowed is sure. Oh, Bisco made a hasty trade. MHJ, Hunt, Mark Andrews, Hawk. Wait a minute. What do you got here?
So he got MHJ, Hunt, and Mandrews for Hawkinson and Myers. Needed an RB until Pacheco gets back. Understandable. Ingram is his other tight end. I don't like anyone on Jacksonville with Mac Jones at quarterback.
Exactly.
No idea when Trevor Lawrence is going to be in there. Mark Andrews, he's been kind of hot lately. I think it might be a little bit of smoke and mirrors because he's gotten hot, but at the same time, like his usage and snap share has not changed. But still, you need a running back. I get it. MHJ, you know, he come into the year talking about Maserati Marv. Well, maybe he's a little more, Mazda Marv.
Yeah.
But still, he's, him and Jacoby Myers are pretty much a wash. I don't hate it.
Okay. Nihal, welcome to the show. Dobbins and Bucky for Jacobs, a good trade?
You know what? It's not awful. I think Dobbins is going to lose some carries with Gus being back. And most importantly, I think he's going to lose some of the goal line work. Bucky is not half bad, honestly. Jacobs is nice because he is a factor both in the running game and in the receiving game. I don't hate the trade. I think it's a good one. Give me that Josh Jacobs side. He's somebody who's shown he can handle a big workload and not break down. So I can dig that.
Cool. KJ Frederick, who's the better tight end in a PPR for this week? Taysom Hill or Dawson Knox? I don't think I don't think Kincaid's injury was that serious, from what I remember.
I don't think last I saw, they were still kind of sorting through things, but just the tone of the comments leads me to believe it's not a major issue. I'm going to go with Taysom Hill. Dawson Knox, he's a 3 for 30 guy that you pray finds the end zone.
Yeah. Bisco, Pollard, and Kamara were his main. Yeah, they are. Nihal McBride buy. Who should I pick up? Disley.
Well, we just talked about Will Disley being a good option. He's got a nice upcoming schedule. He's a great option for just a single week pickup because you're not going to start him over Trey McBride. Yeah, and he should be available in your league unless you're in like one of the 2% of leagues where he's rostered.
So Jonnu, Taysom, Knox, or Disley?
Ooh, Well, Knox is a no, so we can eliminate him. We just talked through Jonnu over Disley with Dubo. So now are we taking Jonnu over Taysom Hill?
I probably don't.
Now, I think I would go with Taysom just because overall, I think he's going to get more opportunities, as a runner, as a receiver. He might take a few snaps under center. They like to use him at the goal line on those QB sneaks. I'd probably go with Taysom Hill.
I would too. And Biscoe's looking to unload CD. I'm sure plenty of managers are. What are you going to trade option ideas? It's really tough to say. At this point, it's like try and get a wide receiver too, or something for him that's going to help you in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, right now I value CD Lamb as like a mid to back end wide receiver too, with just the terrible QB play that they're going to have there in Dallas. I mean, they've got Cooper Rush, who we know what he is, which he ain't shit. Trey Lance is even less than that, and they just signed Will Grier, who's on like his 9th team in 3 years, which should tell you all you need to know about him. I gotta believe there's probably not a whole lot of people out there that are looking to trade for CD Lamb, but if I am trying to move him, you need to be realistic, right? Unless you can get somebody to bite based off reputation, you're looking at maybe like a back end running back too, something like that.
Yeah. Niall's asking about Amari rest of season. Man, that's tough there. If he could get a little bit more acclimated there and obviously get that wrist healthy, and there's a chance he might not play this week either. Their Bills are on bye week 12. So depending on how bad that wrist injury is, he might not play this week and get ready for week 13.
Yeah, I think rest of season. Look, we know his upside, and that's probably a back end wide receiver one. Josh Allen has shown that when he has an elite talent at wide receiver there, he's willing to feed them. I mean, look what Stephon Diggs his past few years there in Buffalo. Main thing is he needs to get his ass out on the field so he can continue to build chemistry with his new quarterback, and he's learning a brand new offense. Now, sometimes that gets overblown, right? Because on a fundamental level, teams are all running the same plays. They're just kind of variations. It's more the terminology he needs to learn.
Yeah. What's up, Jauan? Thanks for joining us tonight, man. Creator of our intro. Good stuff. Still love it. Nihal, what caliber running back could you get for Dobbins and Bucky and or Dobbins and Tracy other than Jacobs? Why is everybody hating on Dobbins?
I mean, I think part of it might be a little bit of an overreaction.
Because of Gus?
Because of Gus. And if you remember earlier in the year, Gus looked like shit.
Oh, yeah.
Quite frankly, he did. He looked good Sunday coming back from injury. He was efficient. Like we saw with him in Baltimore. I mean, for a good stretch, he was averaging 5 yards a carry for his career, which he's one of the last people you would expect that from, just given his run style. He's the between the tackles, Chris Ivory type motherfucker.
Yeah.
But now, if he looks a little bit better, that's going to eat into Dobbins' workload, obviously. And you've got Dobbins' injury history to consider too. Jim Harbaugh is no idiot. This is a team now who have playoff aspirations, so they're still going to run the ball quite a bit. Dobbins is legitimately going to lose some carry share.
Tracy, I love. I
wouldn't want to trade Tyrone Tracy. Honestly, I think he has, RB1 upside any given week. That's not really the kind of dude you want to move unless you're doing a major improvement to your team. I have no problem trading Dobbins and Bucky. If I'm doing that, Bucky is a, back end running back too. Dobbins is a higher end running back too. I think you could target maybe a back end running back one on a team who is in need of running backs. But that's who you're going to have to target. So look around your leagues, see who's got maybe, one good running back and then just a bunch of garbage behind him. That's who you want to try and trade with.
Good idea. And when do we think Pacheco's coming back? And is he going to be an RB1 rest of the season? It'd be tough.
So, I mean, essentially, sometime here in the next 3 weeks, if I had to guess, it would be either Thanksgiving weekend or the week after. Is he going to be an RB1 rest of season? He come on strong late last year and was kind of like a borderline RB1, RB2. I think that's kind of an optimistic projection for him. If anything, I think he'll be, a higher end running back too, with RB1 upside any given week, especially if he finds the end zone.
Yeah. And Kansas City as a team, I don't know why they'd be in a super hurry to bring him back. Obviously they got the when they decide to designate him, or did he already get? Oh no, he already got designated, so he's got the 21 days or whatever. But they still got Hunt, and I guess I'm just not in a hurry to rush him back. Maybe it takes a couple weeks for them. So, and Bisco, think Pacheco takes a few games to start. He has him and Hunt. Mark Andrews had the same injury and wasn't the same out the gate. I think there's concern with that with any player coming back. But a few games, probably not.
Yeah,
So
I imagine
two,
maybe his first game back, he gets, 10, 12 carries, but, and they'll gauge how he's feeling after that, right?
Yep.
If he's feeling good, now all of a sudden you've got a running back with fresh legs when everybody else is beat up, and it's going to make him look a little bit better. Kareem Hunt is still going to have a role on that team. He's played well enough for them to include him in the mix. I would imagine once Pacheco is back up to full speed, maybe we're looking at a 65-35 split, maybe a 60-40 with a little bit of Samaje Perine mixed in certain situations.
Yeah. I just took a peek at Pacheco's playoff schedule. Cleveland, Houston, and Pittsburgh, all in the top 10 in points allowed to, or fewest points allowed to running backs. Ugh.
They are, but Kansas City has also showed, we'll call it a renewed commitment to the run, just based on how things are going with the offense.
That's true. That's true. And do you think Estime will continue to have most of the carries rest of the season? I do. I really do. I think it'll be close, but I think he'll get more than Javonte.
Yeah, I think at this point, Sean Payton has seen all he needs to see from Javonte Williams to make a decision, not only this season, but likely going forward. Mm-hmm. Estime is a dude he picked. He's a bigger between the tackles, bruising kind of back. I think he will, but just keep in mind, he's not going to be a factor in the pass game. That's going to fall to McLaughlin.
Okay. Mr. Magic's back. Rank these four rest of season: London, CD, Tyreek, and Garrett.
I'm going Garrett, London, Tyreek, CD.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was going to do. And
Garrett Wilson's target share has actually gone up.
Yeah. Since Devontae's been there?
Since Devontae got there.
We got Big Dion 7 from the Twitch. Really enjoy your streams, the vibe you bring. Appreciate that. We really love that. If you'd like to, feel free to add me on Discord. We got to get with this Discord program. Yeah. I'll jot that down, man. Definitely. Bisco, drop Javonte or Madison?
If I'm dropping one, it's Javonte. Madison, even though he's not been the greatest, he's still getting volume.
Yeah. And Arturo Flores, are you scared of Jayden Daniels?
Yes, every night. I haven't slept in weeks because I'm afraid he's just going to pop out from somewhere and attack me like Freddy Krueger. No, he's
playing very well.
He's playing very well. Him and Cliff Kingsbury have really kind of meshed. He's operating the offense at a high level. He has an alpha receiver in Terry McLaurin. He has a solid but unspectacular run game behind him to support him. And that offensive line has played fantastic this year. No, I'm not scared of Jayden Daniels at all. In the league that I roster him, I'm starting him every single week with confidence, even though he had, a down week last week. It is what it is. He's a rookie, and even veteran quarterbacks are not just going to go off every single week.
This is true. And he follows up there with Justin Jefferson. Darnold looks so bad. Darnold's starting to come down to earth a little bit. Isn't that right, Dubo?
He is a little bit, and the picks didn't look great, right? But you want to remember that even though they only scored 12 points against the Jaguars, they still had like 400 yards of offense.
Yeah.
So they moved the ball. It was just a couple shittily timed turnovers, which there's never really a good time.
And I think Justin Jefferson is QB proof. I don't give a fuck if your grandma's out there throwing. I'm still starting him.
Oh, sure.
And Mr. Magic, can Hawk be a top 5 tight end rest of the season? There's a good chance of that. He got 9 targets the other day.
Yeah, I think he can, and maybe it's not even necessarily due to who he is as a player, but more just the state of the position. If he puts forth 85% of what he was last season, which I think is doable, even coming off the kind of injury that he had, that would make him a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of those players that could be pretty impactful down the stretch.
Dubo says he's fresh and hungry.
Yeah, that's true.
I used to know a lot of women like that. They were fresh and hungry.
All right, guys, we're going to get the heck out of here. You guys have a good night. We'll be back Thursday night, 7 p.m. We'll be previewing week 11. We'll have a bunch of starts and sits for you as well and take all your questions live. Stay stoned, everyone. Have a great night.